In today's video, we're going to talk about a very important topic when it comes to grassroots motorsports, and that's how you go about choosing your very first helmet for your first track day or an HPDE. I'm going to go through this video with my very first helmet, which is now actually expired. It's had a great life of use, and I'm going to give you all the tips as well as things to look for when you're picking out your first helmet. One thing I always tell new drivers is if they're considering going to their first track day or to an HPDE and there isn't a mandatory helmet requirement, it's usually a red flag to look elsewhere. Okay, so this is the HJC AR-10-2, and I've had this helmet since 2015, literally the first helmet that I got, and I purchased it for my first HPDE. And this helmet, when it was new, was around, I think just over, a little bit over $300. And it is geared towards entry level, very affordable, but great construction and extremely light for what it is. Now, the first thing that you'll want to consider when purchasing your first helmet, and it's hard to let it sink in, but the fit and the comfort is going to be the most important part. And it's unfortunate because the styling between manufacturers, sometimes you may like the look of a certain helmet, but at the end of the day, it just does not fit the shape of your head. You want to definitely overlook that. Go with something that fits properly, and styling comes second. And the reason behind that is each manufacturer has to pick a head shape that they're going to optimize for, and the volumes and the casting of the helmet shape itself is somewhat locked in for a model during their manufacturing process. So the key areas of fit that you want to assess when putting it on, you might feel some pressure in the jaw, in the temples, and if you have a round head like I do, the top towards the rear, sometimes you may feel some pressure points. And for the helmet to work effectively, you really do want to make sure that you're comfortable when you put the helmet on for the first time. Now, the padding itself will soften up a little bit over time, but it's not going to by a large amount. So if it's uncomfortable the first time you put it on, chances are you want to try and size up. One rule to consider with helmets is don't make it a blind buy. And what I mean by that is you definitely want to try it on, unless it's literally the exact same model that you previously had. Even manufacturers, when they go between 5-year models and they upgrade, so this is the HJC AR-10-2, I know for a fact that my head for the exact same size of helmet does not fit the HJC AR-10-3. And that's just a decision that the manufacturers made in changing the casting or the mold for the overall shape of the helmet. Other than fit, the most important thing that you want to confirm with helmets is that it's not expired. And what I mean by that is there's a new standard that is released every 5 years for helmets, and that standard will be eligible for events, HPDs, track days, racing events for 10 years. And what you'll find with motor racing helmets is that you'll get a sticker on the inside with something called an SA rating or a Snell rating. And with this helmet, it's usually a sticker right on the foam itself. So I'll bring it up to the camera to see if you can see. In there, the orange label. And you can see that orange sticker in there that says SA 2010. And despite this being a helmet that was actually manufactured with the other sticker, they're made 2012. So that's something that you want to know, is that the 10-year eligibility for a helmet does not follow the date of manufacturing, but the accreditation that it had for that product cycle. So this was made in 2012, but it was part of the SA 2010 product cycle, so therefore it was only eligible until the end of 2020. The second thing to consider is the padding and the cushioning and the material. And for that, I'm going to show you what this helmet looks like on the inside. So as you can see, it's been well loved. There's a lot of this Nomex lighting, which is a flame retardant, is coming off. And that in itself is enough to say that this helmet should not be used in competition or for track days anymore. A key difference in especially lower end helmets is whether some of the padding is removable or not. So in the HJC AR10 version 2, the cheek pads are removable, as you can see there. They slide right out and you can slide back in both sides. And there is a helmet liner on the inside as well that can be removed. And this is great because you're gonna sweat quite a bit in these helmets, and it's good to be able to take them out and just be able to clean them from time to time. Now, not everything in the helmet is going to be removable. So if we remove the headliner, you can tell that there's still a padded and Nomex lined piece around the back where the styrofoam is, and that piece there is glued in and fixed to the helmet for safety purposes. So just bear that in mind, that not everything can be washed, even if you have some removable lining in the helmet. The other thing to consider in terms of materials is, what do you want your outer shell to be made of? So this is a composite material, and to be honest, it's quite light. I can imagine that the HJC composite helmet is probably lighter than some of the heaviest carbon helmets on the market. Like for like, when you're comparing the same model, whether in composite or in carbon, the weight difference is usually only a couple hundred grams. So keep that in mind. Usually, I would say when you are looking at carbon helmets, it's mostly for paddock fashion. Sure, over a long endurance race, you may actually feel that weight and it's more comfortable. But to be honest, for the price difference, it's a fashion item. One of the things that you'll notice about this helmet is that there are quite a few accessories on there. So let me kind of quickly go through how people tend to accessorize their helmets. The first thing that most people look at is getting a visor, and it's quite popular to get these iridium or reflective visors. You can see mine has seen some wear. This is actually fuel splash from a fuel jug during racing that needed to be burped and got onto the helmet. I didn't realize, and it was too late to kind of save some of the finishing here. The key problem I find with visors and getting an iridium one is they tend to be too dark. And what I mean by that is, when you're inside the car, I pretty much have never had my visor all the way down during lapping or during endurance racing. And it's just, you lose detail. And I think a lot of it is, it looks cool. I definitely fell for that and wanted to get something that looked really interesting. You can't see the eyes, it's full reflective. And in speaking to some manufacturers where they have options for the degree of darkness, they typically say that it's the younger audience that want the darker full reflection. And as they work with more mature drivers, they tend to get something that's a little bit lighter, that's just more functional. The only time where I've had it fully down was when I wasn't wearing sunglasses on the inside. I do have prescription glasses, and I was karting. So it was actually necessary to have the visor all the way down so you're not getting rocks and rubber getting thrown in towards your eyes. The other accessory that I do have on here are my head and neck restraint posts. So these are posts for Schroth head and neck restraint. Now, the industry standard is Hans posts. So if you are getting a helmet that already has these pre-installed, I would get the Hans models, mostly because if you're going to do some grassroots endurance racing, chances are you can save some money, that the team only needs to have 1 or 2 pairs where you can swap, and most people will have Hans posts as opposed to some other standard. So if you do want to save some money and share that for endurance racing, that's a possibility. The other interesting piece that I have on here is a communication system. And this is not something that you need for your helmet. It's really when you get into something like Champ Car or Lucky Dog or Lemons racing that you need communications with your team. One thing I will mention to kind of future-proof yourself to be able to accept a system like this is getting a helmet that does have removable cheek pads, because you can run the line underneath the pad, and you can see down here, I do have the microphone and that is completely hidden behind the cheek pad and routing it. And the issue to think about there is if you get helmets with non-removable lining, you're gonna have to run your microphone out to the front and into the front underneath. So you're gonna have to curve it in like that. Doesn't look great, and to be honest, tends to be not as great quality of call, because it's very common for the microphone to start seeping out from the bottom and not staying put right in front of your mouth. So in terms of the components, this is your 3.5mm jack where you can put in and plug in your headphones, so earbuds. And here, this is basically what is called an IMSA connector, and this will connect to your radio system in the car. These are fixed using essentially these 3M zip tie mounts. So two here, one here, and then I applied some Velcro pads to keep this right here and easily accessible. One thing to consider in thinking about how to route this is have it on the driver's side. And it's mostly because if you are doing some grassroots endurance racing, the connector here, your teammate is actually going to be plugging in this for you. You won't be doing it yourself, just to save time and make sure that you can accurately find the plug for that. Now that you know about the desync between manufacturing year and the SA rating, that actually creates a pretty good opportunity to save some money, because what retailers are starting to do is discount let's say for right now, there are SA 2020 helmets on the market, but so are SA 2015s. And the 2015s will expire at the end of 2025. So you have, 4 years now, 4 seasons at least, to still use a 2015 helmet. And why that's advantageous is you really have to think about how long your first helmet is going to last. And I would say 4 to 5 years is probably the right amount of time to start considering retiring a helmet. Again, as we've noticed with the interior of this helmet, with how we are destroying the lining, even though these are removable, some parts will not be. And for example, the strap for your helmet is mandated fixed and not removable and not replaceable. So if you start to have threads wearing out on this, or on the Nomex that lines it, that's as good as done at this point. The other part is looking at the surface of this helmet. You can see a lot of pitting, and this is just brushing up against roll cages, doors, etc., coming in and out of vehicles. So if you can get a good 4 years out of this, it's already, in my opinion, served its useful life. Just kind of think of it as a consumable. So with that in mind, what it entails is it's a great opportunity that when the next model year comes out and is available for retail, considering buying the previous standard, so 2020s are out now, consider buying the 2015s, and in most cases you can get a steep discount, perhaps even up to 30-40% off of the original price, and you're still going to get the exact same amount of time and life out of it that you would have if you had bought it just when it came out, because it is very rare for folks to get a full 10 years out of a helmet before it just gets to a point where it's quite tattered. The 10 years is a maximum lifespan. You have to kind of make the call yourself when it's time to replace the helmet. Again, thinking about your own safety and whether the helmet is still up to the task. So that's a quick look at all the things that I would look at when considering purchasing your first helmet. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave us a comment down below. For those of you guys who have already purchased your first helmet, which model did you go with? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.